The sensitive promise pestilence, earthquakes, dinosaurs, and 3 days of darkness. Among the many religions professed by countries and people, for many, Christianity looks at the darkest, since Christian missionaries and preachers never promise anything good, and whatever the prediction, there are famines and pestilences which turn into Noah's flood and some kind of slaughter. However, if you look back over the last 200 years, the events of which there are no historical sources, then in general, there was nothing particularly good in the world. Clashes between large and small tribal groups, bloody revolutions, famine, epidemics, natural disasters, and economic crises. Sometimes life got better, 10 or so years seemed like a golden age, but then some time passed and it seemed to be just a break for them to bear fruit and multiply, and then the wheel started turning again. And therefore, in reality, Christian sensitivities and preachers do not lie, and moreover, they do not scare anyone. They simply indicate what will happen in an area at one time or another. For example, in Estonia in the late 1930s, a guy named Karl Reitz appeared. He heard a voice in his head commanding him to go to the Tallinn market and start preaching, first of all telling everyone that woe is coming. The local idiots started throwing whatever they were buying and selling at him. He was then dragged to the police, then to the mayor, then they put him into a mental hospital. Karl Reich was hated, among others, by priests and pastors because his pranks differed from the general paradigm. However, the next 10 years passed exactly like clockwork, exactly as Karl Reitz predicted. The Bolsheviks appeared, priests were shot in their cathedrals, turning into clubs for playing harmonica. People were sent to the camps, and Tallinn itself, bombarded by X-rays so the Van Yukas have somewhere to roam. Unfortunately, all the prophecies of Karl Reitz have not been preserved. It's only known that the promised period of calm after the departure of the Bolsheviks in Russia would end with the destruction of Jerusalem, he said, after which the complete end of the world will come, he said. However, today there are other people who hear something in their head and write the following. In a dream, I saw how one of my loved ones who had received a new injection suddenly lost consciousness and bleeding all over his body. In a dream, I cried and suffered from pain. I clearly felt the immense pain of losing loved ones, but as soon as I awoke, I heard words coming from somewhere within. A sad hour is coming. The website 444 Prophecy News is a source of information, of course, not the most reliable and very gloomy. And the next headline there is, 2024 will be the year of the cry for mercy. So let's not read about sad things, but listen to what some have to say. Thus, wars and natural disasters will intensify. There will be famine and overcrowding, and there will be pestilence. The recording took place in a community that, by the will of fate, found itself locked in the swamps of Moksha, where there are very few people, and there are either mindless slaves around or sitting around watching TV. So there is nothing strange about this. Avanga Moksha really does not expect anything good, and soon liberators will come from the DRC, and then for some it will even be worse. Either they will be driven on foot somewhere, or they will sit high on wooden platforms and look away. And yet, almost word for word, the wang for the sinking of Moscow is repeated by Protestants living in quiet, hospitable Germany. Another channel, an author of which lives in Canada, promises even more terrible horrors on another continent, which will be shrouded in darkness, and dinosaurs will crawl out of the abyss, he says. At the same time, he gives a special grim warning to Moldova, which appeared from the map. We do not consider ourselves either famous psychologists, hypnotherapists who delve into someone else's head, or among astropaths and telepaths whose heads can see and hear something on their own. But we note that the flow of all kinds of dire prophetic warnings came somewhat thick. About a dozen such warnings caught our eye, literally in one day. The practice of observing the world situations show that all this promises some drastic changes, and it certainly won't be for the better. The last one, the only time that happened, was on the eve of October 7, when astral telepaths promised all kinds of passions so tightly that they were already choking. So there will probably be some unexpected global change, maybe some kind of a cataclysm, maybe the Chinese decide to swim to Taiwan, or maybe Dr. Billy will run out, boogle-eyed from the lab built in the garage, with flashing vials and syringes, a white coat covered in stains, and some precious new medical initiative. We don't know, but we are following the developments. Obviously, in the end of the year is coming, and a lot of prophecies and predictions will be coming out. This I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.